Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Celebration is today's theme. We are celebrating life with messages of hope. Community Healthcare of Texas serves 25 counties in and around Fort Worth and Waco. This year, because of COVID-19, we chose to combine the Fort Worth and Waco events into one virtual celebration. Funds raised locally will stay in the community where you live. Today, our Messages of Hope event is all about life, celebrating life and spreading the message that life matters as a hospice patient and as a caregiver to your loved one. Let me read you a quote by Dr. Cicely Saunders. We believe this will set the tone for us today. You matter because you are you. You matter to the last moment of your life. And we will do all we can not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. To live unto death, not merely exist in pain and or isolation, but to live as fully as possible. This quote forms the foundation of our mission. Leading us to accomplish that mission is our CEO, Vicki Jingle.
Today's program is about our mission in action, a mission that would be impossible without you. I want to thank each of you for joining me in this celebration of hope, made possible by your support of Community Healthcare of Texas. Like so many friends and families, we have found new ways to celebrate. We all miss the hugs and handshakes of past events and look forward to having them again in the near future. Yet here we are, together, finding new ways to celebrate our mission in action. Because of you, this day is possible. Because of you, we are able to deliver hope to our patients and caregivers every day. We are grateful each time a family chooses Community to partner with and invite into their homes. Because of you, we will be able to continue providing professional care to all who need it, including those that are uninsured. Because of you, we can continue to find renewed hope with every challenge we face. My message today is of hope and gratitude. It is one of many you will hear during our program. As you listen to each story, know the comfort and hope families receive in our care is only made possible because of you. Thank you for joining me today and being a part of our mission of hope.
As Vicki just said, we are grateful to everyone who has contributed in the past and those who will contribute today. We want to give a special thank you to Luther King Capital Management for underwriting today's entire event. 100% of what you give today will go directly to patient care. We appreciate the other donors who contributed to ensure that our mission goes forward. Please visit our donation site sometime during our event. Use your phone and you won't miss any of our program. Let me tell you something about how COVID-19 impacted our ability to provide necessary personal protection equipment, PPE, for our staff when it became apparent that PPEs will cost upward of $150,000. At the beginning of our program, you saw slides with the names of Life Fulfiller Society members. These members faithfully pledged donations in 5-year increments. Because of these consistent donors, we continued our mission without the fear of turning away the uninsured or ending our bereavement for all services. And we didn't use our reserves. We knew the community was there for us with their recurring gifts. The Life Fulfiller Society funds extra programming like a child life specialist, memory items for children and parents, grief services for anyone in the community, and most of all, funds what we consider the community difference. Your gift today is a wonderful opportunity to help aid the Community Fund. The Community Fund supports the community difference therapies, which include music therapy and pet therapy, Little Doves Pediatric Hospice, grief care for children and adults, palliative care, and benevolent care. Because of our Life Fulfiller members, we did not have to lay off staff or turn anyone away who needed care. Let me introduce someone who knows firsthand about the Community Fund. Steve O'Hannon, who is on staff in Waco, is only too familiar with the Community Fund. And he's going to give us an up-close and personal look at exactly how important personal protection equipment is to keep everyone, our patients, nurses, and caregivers, safe.
Just to let you know that PPE is extremely important to protect us, to protect our families, and to protect our patients. And so we have all of this PPE because of you. And your donations have allowed us to have the appropriate protective equipment to keep this coronavirus from causing more problems. We appreciate it very much. To put on PPE is a kind of an ordeal. You have to put it on in a certain order, and you have to take it off in a certain order. And it takes quite a bit of time to get that put together. So you've got to make sure your feet are covered, and you've got a gown on, and you have the appropriate mask, and you have to have a face shield and the appropriate gloves. All of that takes time to put on, and it takes time to take it off. And you have to take it off in a certain order so that you're not exposing yourself or someone else to any potential viruses that can be on the PPE. I just want to tell you the story about my stepson. 8 years ago, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. We had hoped for the best, but we did plan for the worst. And at the same time, I actually joined the hospice team. About a year and a half later, John, my stepson, failed his therapies, and it was time for him to go on hospice. He had been working all of his life until these problems and was unable to work and was uninsured. I went to my boss and I asked if we could bring John on service. And I explained that he was unfunded, didn't have any insurance. And my boss said, "That's not a problem, that's what we do." And it's because of you that my stepson was able to receive hospice care at the end of life. And I appreciate that. John passed away sometime later, and we celebrate his life now. And we also remember that he received very high quality care from Community Healthcare of Texas, and we appreciate it because you made that possible. And I hope that you can join us and to ensure that other people that have the same circumstance can receive this kind of care when they can't afford it. I just want to say that our employees believe in the mission of Community Healthcare of Texas so much that we gave $58,000 so that those who can't afford high-quality end-of-life care can come to us and receive that care. Thank you for joining us in this mission.
Wow, $58,000 from the employees of Community for the uninsured. You've just seen what we've been doing as the pandemic impacted our mission. Now I want to introduce you to the care we provide to an age group you might not have associated with hospice care.
In 2008, my unborn son was diagnosed with an illness that was incompatible with life. The doctors had no idea what to predict, how much time we'd have, if the pregnancy would go full term, if we'd ever even have a chance to meet him. But what we did know is that we loved him and we wanted an opportunity to experience life with him. And so we were connected with Community Healthcare and their pediatric hospice program. And when immediately a pediatric hospice nurse came to our home, spent a couple hours with us and explained everything that was going to be available to us. And what we realized is that we weren't going to have to walk this journey alone. Instead, we would have a team of people that would help us. If Thomas was able to come home, that we could take him home. And thankfully, in June of 2008, Thomas was born full term, screaming and kicking and doing all the things that a normal healthy baby does. The only thing was he wasn't healthy. And we knew our time would still be limited, but when he was 2 days old, we were able to take him home and build memories that most parents of healthy children get to do. We were able to bathe him and take him on a walk and introduce him to the neighbors. And unfortunately, we didn't have all the time we wanted. And on July 4th, 2008, when he was 5 days old, he passed away. But what we did build during that time was a beautiful memory of what life was like with our son. It was this time that was so incredibly precious to us that we wanted to make sure that every family had access to something like that, because we know in our situation, while we had health insurance, not everything was covered. But because of you and your generosity, the Pediatric Hospice Program can provide support for families like ours. It almost became a mission for us to make sure that everyone had access to those same resources. And that's when I had the opportunity to meet Renee and her precious son, Sebastian.
Because I was 37 years old, so I was considered high risk. And before I even knew if he was a boy, which I was really waiting on a boy, I learned that he was sick.
Nathan was our third child, and he was the baby of the family, and he was, his kindergarten teacher described him as being a very spiritual child, even before he got sick.
I took some time to try to figure out if I was going to proceed in the pregnancy or not, because there was like some people do abort. That wasn't an option for me.
He tolerated it all so well, and such a great attitude, and didn't give us a hard time about all of his doctor's appointments and his chemo and getting poked and radiation, the whole thing. He was very, very brave.
They didn't know what to do with us at the hospital, because they said, you'll get 2 hours if you're lucky. And I just remember preparing myself mentally for this next step.
But ultimately they did a follow-up MRI, and they saw a small area of progression in his brainstem. And that was when we had the hard talk from our neuro-oncologist that there wasn't anything else that we could do. The best thing we could do for Nathan would be to take him home with hospice, which is not words any parent ever wants to hear.
But then Deetra came to the hospital. And I don't know. She gave me her phone number, she sat there with me, and it was just good for somebody to say, I know how you feel. Because she knew. And that's what I needed. Because then nobody else knew how I felt. Because you have a baby, your baby not sick. So you don't really know how we feel. But she did.
We got home Friday afternoon, and they were here. They met with us. We met with an intake nurse first, who just got us set up.
I told the Lord, I said, I don't know how, I understand that he's sick, and I accept that. But what I don't know is how I'm gonna leave the hospital without a baby. And so he allowed me to go home with Sebastian. And we had him for 63 days. I counted every day.
You know, you think of hospice as just a way to help you die, but they weren't, obviously they were helping us along that path, but their goal was to get him to his best and hope to get him to a baseline, and hoping that his best was better than where he was when he came home from the hospital, that maybe with adjusting medications and doing other things that we'd be able to get him to a better quality of life than he had at that point in time.
Then I met Alan. Alan was the hospice nurse. And I wrestled with a hospice nurse. I don't want that. But they were the best family that I had, because they didn't look at Sebastian like he was gonna die.
But our child life specialist was important for me and for our other 2 children. Also worked with them to see where they were and how they were feeling, and to educate them about what was happening. And she was also our memory maker. She made early on made a thumbprint necklace for us, and a plaster Paris hand replica, and things that were and are really important now that he's gone.
For the morning that he passed, I packed him up, I put him in the car, and I took him to school. I took him to drop off the girls at school. They were so happy. Happy that he rode with them to school. And they got out the car, they went into class, they told everybody their little brother was in the car and drove with them to school. And then, you know, I believe that he passed somewhere, because when we got back home, he had already passed.
They assured us, that we were going to be able to handle this, and it just felt good to know we weren't alone in that process. But as Nathan's breathing became more and more difficult, I told my husband that I really wanted to hold him. He was in the hospital bed, and my husband said, you need to do that. You need to hold him. That's where he started, and that's where he'll finish, is in your arms. And so, we just got complete support about that we needed to do what was right for our family. And he picked him up and put him in my arms, and he struggled for a while longer, maybe an hour and a half or so. At the end of that hour and a half, it was clear he was about to take his last breath, and on his last breath, he smiled at everybody twice. 2 big smiles. Like the first one, we were like, did he smile? And then he did it again, just to let us know that he was okay, that he was gone, but he was gone to a better place, and that this fight was over. So
They were a great benefit to me. I will always be grateful.
Our mission is to serve everyone, from the youngest and most vulnerable to those who are mature and still loving life, with the most passionate end-of-life care possible.
Belonging to a community is vital to our existence. We want to fit in and we want to be part of community. And I've learned we're not waiting for someone to reach out, but we are reaching in. And that's where my story begins, with community health care. Growing up in a family of 4 boys who were avid fishermen and Eagle Scouts, Dale Mitchell learned a set of skills that served him all his life. He had to plan, he had a progress report, he had different skills that he needed to use. Would rob him of his relationships, his place in community, and his life. And Dale's response to that was, I'm not afraid. He didn't argue, he didn't ignore. He simply said, I'm not afraid. And that began a new journey for us. He used those same skills to plan, to budget, to travel, to suffer, to relinquish his place in community. Recently, I was traveling to Katy, Texas, and I came upon an accident that highlighted all this for me. A car had hit and killed a dog, and the mate, obviously the mate, was circling the dead animal, and every once in a while would look up at me and say, aren't you going to help me? Why don't you help me help her? And as I sat there mesmerized and witnessed this event, it came to me, that's what happened to us. We realized that we needed help. We had early on made the decision that Dale would stay home, not considering how that would affect us or our family or even caring. That was our decision. But now we needed help. And in walked community health care. I knew what to do, but I didn't know how. Kathy came in and made sense of my what. She gave us all the medical help we could need. Tish came in and helped groom a very proud man to an impeccable standard, and he grew to love her so much. Michaela came in and helped me with many things. One time it was just a matter of clean sheets. When I couldn't, she could. Sonia came in with wonderful volunteers for us. Wayne came with Sonia, and he had a hard-won friendship with Dale and arrived every week with a Hershey bar. Jennifer came in and brought music for our souls. Danny came. He brought a sound spiritual ear for us. You see, it took this whole team of people to keep us living. Yet, while Dale was relinquishing his place in community, these people were reaching in. They knew how, and they were serving us well. We continued with this team of people until the very hour when Dale looked at Kathy and me and said, "It's time." And we moved him over to the facility where hospice would keep him for his last days. Even there, they served his every need and kept his impeccable place in society. They allowed him to live. He soon lost his sight. Steve would explain to him every change along the way, and with tenderness and compassion, minister to Dale. Even the very day that he died, an aide placed music by his ear until I and the girls could arrive back at the facility. They reached in, they continued to reach in and meet every need that Dale had until his last breath. They gave him dignity, they gave him life, and they helped him transition into what a French mathematician has called that vacuum place in everybody's soul that's God-shaped, and nothing created can fill it. And Dale went to his assignment in that spiritual realm with hospice walking beside him and allowing him to stay in community until that very hour. And that's what community health care does for us. When we get to the point where we can no longer do it on our own, they reach in. That's what makes us real, and that's what makes us whole. Not waiting for someone to reach out, but reaching in.
The Community Fund is an intricate part of our mission. One of the greatest needs is providing funds to care for the uninsured.
April was the closest thing I will ever have to a sister. We were best friends from the time I was 3, and she was 5.5. She was every bit the Disney princess. Beautiful singing voice, little naive, a lot spoiled, but good as gold. She loved children. She loved her animals. In fact, she was a daycare worker. She went to college for early childhood education, and that was one of her main passions in life, was teaching little kids. She was 36 years old when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. No family history of breast cancer, very unexpected, and they immediately began treatment with chemotherapy and eventually a mastectomy. And she did chemo, radiation, and everything for about 2 years. She was very excited to plan a trip to Disney World for her 40th birthday, because by that time she was going to have had her reconstruction and she was going to be feeling great. And the very next day she had kind of an odd spell, almost like a mini stroke or something. And within a couple of days they came back and said, "We're very sorry, but the cancer has metastasized to your cerebrospinal fluid." So instead of planning for her reconstructive surgery, they were now telling her that this is a terminal diagnosis. We spent Friday night of that next weekend enjoying movies and having a girls' night. And Saturday she seemed a little off. Something wasn't quite right with her. And then Sunday she was completely incoherent, and we had to rush her to the emergency room. A couple of days later, they came back and said that no, it was just the cancer had moved so fast that it was now affecting her brain, and there wasn't anything else that they could do. So we would be going on to hospice at that point. There wasn't really a lot explained about hospice care, what is done, what is not done. And so we were just kind of put in a room at the end of a hallway. It was very, very difficult because we didn't really feel like they were paying much attention to this young woman because she had been given the sentence, so to speak. Fortunately, again, one of the children that she had cared for had a wonderful mother who worked with community and came up to visit and saw what was going on and said, I think we can do better than this. That is how we wound up with community and at Providence Hospice Place, where April spent the last days of her life and where our family was receiving the care and compassion that we really needed in that moment. With everything happening so fast, it was nice to have people willing to sit down and explain everything about the process. April was a daycare worker, so like a lot of people that work very necessary but somewhat underappreciated jobs, she did not have health insurance, didn't make enough necessarily to afford to buy it on her own. So at the time of her diagnosis until the day she passed, she was uninsured. So when Providence Hospice Place and community stepped in, we didn't have to worry about that anymore. And it was a huge, huge relief for her mother, for all of us really, to know that she would be cared for well and that it wouldn't be a matter of money or anything like that. The first night when we finally got from the hospital to the actual hospice care facility, April was settled into her room, a beautiful, comfortable, home-like room where you didn't feel quite so clinical, I guess. I hadn't been sleeping because I was consistently having to chase down a nurse or page someone about making sure that she had pain medication and making sure that things that were needing to be taken care of were being taken care of. And I got there and the nurse hugged us all, told us how sorry she was. Every person we have dealt with since we got there, since April passed, has been helpful, has been caring, has been compassionate, and listens to every concern you have and answers every question you have. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who made it possible for April to get the care that she needed. Because of people like you, we didn't have to worry about the most difficult moments of our life being bogged down with concerns about money or anything like that. And I'd like you to know that the gifts that you give today will make that possible for somebody else who's going through the worst moments of their life.
Every patient you've heard about today has been introduced to you by a loved one. Now it is my joy to have you hear from one of our hospice champions in his own words.
When you're terminally ill, it takes a while to accept that I'm going to die. And talking about that with other people can be really uncomfortable because even when you have accepted it, others around you are still wrestling with it. One of the great things about hospice is that these are professionals who know the truth. And so the conversations are always natural and flowing. And in fact, dying can be kept in its proper perspective. It's just one of those things we all do. So hospice has been helpful to me in that it gives me people to talk to who are completely comfortable with the subject. I was perfectly healthy as a child. In fact, I was athletic and throughout my adulthood rode bicycles. In fact, I rode the Hotter Than Hell 100 as recently as 2015, the Century, the 100-mile bike race in Wichita Falls. Now, my ministry brought me to Fort Worth. With First Presbyterian Church, I was a senior pastor, and the congregation does remarkable things throughout the community and world. Jackie and I were married 7 years ago. We said I do, and my health began to decline. So Jackie had to live into For Better or Worse pretty quickly. And she's been a blessed caregiver and partner and friend throughout all of my ailing health. 8 years ago, I began having clots, and we still have a undiagnosable clotting disorder, which has caused me all kinds of subsequent problems, including pulmonary embolisms. So I've long since lost track of my decline in health, the number of surgeries I've had, but I've had 2 open heart surgeries. I've had 3 pulmonary embolisms. I've had the amputation of my left foot. But recently, I've been diagnosed with something called CTEPH, which is chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension, and have been on medication for it. The side effects of that medication proved worse than the cause. I knew in 2018 that this disease would end my life, and so that I wanted to spend the remainder of my life in as satisfying and loving way as I could.
And he was on life-saving medicine that they had said, you know, he could pass away 30 minutes or 30 days. And so, again, for all those years that he talked about, 7 years, my goal always was, we're going to fix it. We're going to figure out what the problem is, and we're going to fix it. I was on spring break from my job, and then COVID hit. And so then I was home, and I began seeing a different side of Carl and his illness, and it was hard for me to kind of face that.
You know, my family believes that when the time has come, the gracious thing to do is to let nature take its course.
Discussions were leading up to that where he was tired and hurting, and I could see that, and I was sad for that. But he, you know, kind of just one day said, we're calling in hospice, and like he described, it happened like that.
The day that I went on hospice, the representative came and spent over 3.5 hours in our home. We interviewed, she asked all the questions necessary. She was very sensitive and very thoughtful, and she took me through a thought process to make sure that this is what I wanted. She was caring for my wife, and then when she had gathered all the information that she needed, she went and she sat at our kitchen table, and she did all of the computer input necessary to get me enrolled, and she had to me that very evening an assurance that I had been accepted as a patient in my first round of hospice drugs.
And so the hospice nurse arrived, and she was genuine and loving and compassionate and taking care of, you know, in our family meeting, Carl in the bedroom, and then we had children here, and then talking with me separately. And what I originally thought to be was that it was going to wean him off over 30 days. And so in my mind, I'm very, you know, I thought, okay, we'll have 30 days to wean him off the medicine, and then from that point on, I'll still maybe have another 30 days. Like, I was really trying to think in my mind how I was processing that he was not going to be here. And so, but then it changed. It wasn't 30 days, it was 3 days. And so we went from working from home and sharing this time to I'm going to lose my husband possibly in 3 days. And it just took, I wasn't ready or there, and I knew I would get there. It just was going to take me time to get there.
And hospice has given my family time to adjust to the thought that I won't be here that much longer. In this shared time in my final days, we've been able in our own home to relate as we always have in an everyday way. It's not institutional. My wife is no longer having to change cartridges for IVs or to cleanse my PICC line. Her role as a caregiver has changed, and we're able now just simply to be together, which has been truly rich. I think she'll look back on my final months as a blessing. We've gotten to spend so much time together in a way that we hadn't before I went on to hospice.
I'm ready. I mean, I'm not ever going to be ready, but the journey helped me to get ready for when it's time. And so at the end, what do? We thank God, right? We thank God for everything that and we live into this life with all of our heart and mind and soul, and we say thank you. So some days are a bit easier than others. In the beginning they were, but every day I would say thank you and have gratitude for whatever that day brought.
I have found even in illness so many things to be thankful for surgeons who go above and beyond, for nurses who are more nurturing than I could have imagined. And as I see what this has done with and for my family, and I see God's movement because it's brought us closer together, and because it's given especially my children a maturity they wouldn't have had otherwise. And my religious conviction that I end up with God and awaiting my other loved ones is so central to me. It's been the craziest thing throughout all of this. In my experience, hospice is a gentle, loving, humane way to let nature take its course and to let people finally rest in peace.
Carl reminds me a lot of Dale and Jackie me. We led similar lives and came to similar circumstances, and community health care joined in and teamed up with both of our families in different ways to help us on our journey. Sometimes in life, needs occur without any warning. Sometimes for our families or for our friends or our neighbors, needs occur and we don't expect them. That's where community health care has come in to help people to see that no need will go unmet. Community health care is the state's largest nonprofit hospice organization. Normally in a year, they serve over $1 million in uncompensated needs throughout the year. This year, they've already seen a $1.5 million label on those uncompensated needs, plus an additional $500,000 in COVID-related needs. This year is unusual. Community health care is a team effort. And by your gifts and your involvement with us, you help ensure that no need will go unmet. They start out with their staff members, and they all participate with each other, going to the extent of supporting one patient a day for 365 days a year. And then alongside them come the advisory boards and the board, who also participate in the giving. And when we're thinking about the team effort and the respect that gives each and every person that's being served on hospice, it reminds me of an invitation that I got early this spring. It was for a walk of remembrance. And on that invitation, there were two statements that spoke to me. The first one was inviting me to a walk of fellowship, not fitness. And that's a little bit what we're asking you to do today. We're all at different levels, whether you might be at the level of a widow's mite, or you might be very successful in business and can give a great deal of money. It's like the invitation was inviting me to walk. I didn't have to jog and I didn't have to run. I could walk at my own pace, but I was still in fellowship with the team. By participating with community health care, in giving financially, you are joining the team. In fact, you've already joined the team by investing in us today your time, which is very valuable. We appreciate that very much. Thank you for doing that. But before the day is over, I hope you'll make another decision. This is a card that is a giving card. It shows you the different levels of giving that you might want to give. The thing we need the most right now financially is the One-Time Life Fulfiller Society. That represents a gift of $1,000 a year over the duration of 5 years. That's less than $3 a day. So if you're able to commit to that level of giving, we certainly thank you, and we are at extreme need for that right now. You've heard of how our expenses have been much more this year during the pandemic. We also have another level that you can give on, which is the monthly gift. And you've seen how that mounts up, as our staff is a good example of that. They've committed over $58,000 this year. And those are in large part gifts given on a monthly basis at a smaller level. Those levels are listed for you on this brochure as well. And last but not least is a one-time gift. Please don't leave today without making some sort of commitment to join us as part of the team, whatever level you can give on, from $10, $15 up to $50,000 or $60,000 this day. Please join us. You've given us your most valuable gift of time, and now we're asking you for a financial gift to partner with us. You know, I told you that invitation that I received earlier this spring had two statements that impacted me, and one was the walk of fitness that we've just talked about financially. The other one was a statement that said, if you choose to acknowledge the sadness and the loss, but also the love, then hope travels with you. Please allow hope to travel with you, my friends. You are going to travel. You're going to move forward from today. By giving to Community Health Care, you're providing that other people, your friends, your neighbors, your family, will have hope in their journey with Community Health Care. But allow that hope to travel with you. Hope doesn't insist. Hope comes along beside you and travels with you. So please carry that with you today as you leave, as you depart from wherever you are watching us. Allow hope to travel with you.
Thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to our donors and their belief in our mission. Because of you and your support, our patients are given the best possible end-of-life care, and their caregivers become part of the Community Healthcare family. I'm a witness because I had a family member served by this organization, and ever since then, I felt that they were a part of our family, and I've been a part of Community Healthcare since then. Thank you for joining us today.